Hello friends, Tommy with Studio Sense here. You know, the average person like myself wakes up right around, I would say 6 a.m. and I can't do anything without that first cup of coffee. Well, in my case, I've gotten pretty adept at the espresso machine, so I make a double espresso. Kind of sort of begs the question, if most people get up around 6 or 7, why is Afnan fragrance entitled Afnan 9AM Dive? We're going to talk a little bit about that, plus give you my my 2 cents on this inspired by fragrance in a little bit more detail after this brief intro. Welcome back everyone. In today's video, we're taking a closer look at Afnan 9AM Dive. There's a lot of hype right now surrounding Afnan's new release, 9PM Rebel. If you know anything about Afnan at all, you know that they are an inspired by. I think they try to stay at least as far away as they can from the idea of being a clone or clone house. They are an inspired by house, so they have inspired by creations. Today we're going to be taking a relatively close look at a release of theirs. It is 9AM Dive. I think of that whenever I hear the word dive. So if most people get up earlier, why would they name the fragrance 9AM Dive? Well, think about it. By the time you have that first cup of coffee, second cup of coffee, or espresso, or double shot, whatever you use to wake yourself up in the morning, you're pretty much ready for the day. You're ready to interact with people, you have access to your vocabulary, you have better focus, and you're ready to what? Dive into your day, dive into your work day, dive into your whatever it is, your passion project, your whatever it is that's keeping you going, keeping you focused. So when you think about it in terms of that, it's really kind of a unique and creative name for a fragrance. This fragrance has been out for a couple years. It was launched in 2022. I'm going to mix it up a little bit. Instead of doing the typical presentation and then going into each thing, I'm going to kind of remix it up a little bit to hopefully make it more interesting. This is the actual presentation. Fits within the fragrance category or family of aromatic, fresh, woody, citrusy. It is an eau de parfum concentration and it is a unisex fragrance, so it can be worn by anyone. Having said that, I will say I get a predominantly masculine sensation from this fragrance. While there's nothing wrong with women wearing this at all, I think shifting more on the side of masculine is what I'm saying. I can totally get behind the idea of Afnan kind of staying away from the word clone. Clone has got some negative connotations associated with it because when you think of a clone, you know, a fragrance is trying to mimic something that already exists. There's not a lot of creativity involved in that. At least you could say off the top, there's not a lot. There actually can be quite a bit of creativity involved in that. But when you're thinking more of it along the lines of an inspired by, it's almost like a producer that takes a song and remixes it and makes it a little bit better maybe, or maybe not. As opposed to doing their own music. It takes a little bit more creativity to create something from scratch as opposed to remixing it up and adding your own experience, as it were, to the fragrance. And that's kind of what's happening with this. Is it's an inspired by fragrances like Bleu de Chanel, fragrances like Versace Dylan Blue, and fragrances like YSL Y. So as a blue, fresh, citrusy fragrance, then you would want to wear this in the summertime. Although it is an everyday wear fragrance, you can wear it in cooler weather. It might be a little bit stilted in terms of performance in cooler weather as opposed to warmer weather, which adds a little bit more life to the performance of the fragrance. And as is the case with a lot of inspired by fragrances or clones, we'll even say, they get discontinued pretty quickly. But it is still available. This one I've had for a while, but you can get it. I noticed the other day, they had it at TJ Maxx for like 30 bucks. So if you can get it locally for $30, within a $10 range of 30 or below isn't bad. It's actually a pretty good deal. But the quality of the fragrance is definitely there. Afnan is impressive when it comes to the quality. It's very heavy. The box itself is very well made. Afnan, crafted by Afnan on the inside in silver writing, cursive writing there, along with the Afnan logo. And it is in its own kind of foam cutout. And the cutout itself is a representation of the sea. You could say that it is a fresh aquatic fragrance as well, even as it's not necessarily an aquatic. Bleu de Chanel is not necessarily an aquatic, but it is a fresh aquatic fragrance. It can be considered that. So this follows suit with the idea of blue fragrances being extremely versatile. So this can be aquatic, can be woody, driftwood woody, in line with being an aquatic fragrance, fresh, citrusy, all the above. Quality, again, pretty outstanding. The bottle is, it takes a little bit of strength to pop it out of its little cutout there, and you can see the cutout is pretty cool. On the back of the box, you've got 9AM Drive Eau de Parfum, the ingredients, some cautionary information, some various stickers, a UPC, and then you've got a holographic logo so that you know you're getting an official Afnan product. The bottle itself is a light blue. The fragrance is not a color, it's just clear or transparent, but the bottle has kind of a light blue cast to it. And the lid is very heavy. It's made out of metal with a little bit of plastic inside, but this is a very heavy. The weight of it is very impressive, along with the weight of the fragrance. And the atomizer, this sprays a very fine mist and a very quick spray. So this is gonna be falling for quite some time because it's a very fine mist, as opposed to heavy molecules that just drop down. You can get a pretty good spread on pulse points and anywhere on your body that you wanna spray. As you may have heard, the lid does click into place, but due to the heaviness, the weight of the bottle, I wouldn't try to hold it up by the lid. On the front, it is a darker blue or navy blue. It has the 9 cut out, transparent. The AM is silver. 5 is in a kind of a cursive font in silver, Afnan 100 ml bottle EDP. On the bottom is an adhesive sticker with all the information you're looking at, size, concentration, batch code. So let's talk about the fragrance. What does it smell like? Well, being that it isn't inspired by, one can guess pretty easily that it smells very similar to Bleu de Chanel, and it really does. But instead of being a smell alike, a note for note smell alike, well, first, let's go into the notes. Afnan 9AM Dive features top notes of blackcurrant, mint, lemon, and pink pepper, with heart notes of apple, cedar, and frankincense, resting on a base of ginger, jasmine, patchouli, and sandalwood. So with a slew of notes like that, one could guess it's going to be very aromatic, fresh, citrusy, fruity, fresh. Very similar to Bleu de Chanel. And I'll tell you an interesting thing that happened regarding this fragrance and my experience with it, because I have had it for a while. When I first got it, thereabouts 2022, and sprayed it on, I actually didn't cover the fragrance on my channel. For whatever reason, I sprayed it on, thought, oh, this is nice, and I put it away. I wasn't super impressed with it, in other words. But I think because it was so new, it hadn't yet fully macerated, it hadn't yet fully come into its own, because yes, fragrances can do that, and I think that's what's happened with this, because after I tried it again much later on, I was very impressed with not only the smell, the sillage, the performance, and everything was notably better. And I don't think it was me that necessarily changed, maybe a little bit. I'll concede that maybe a little bit was me, but I think the fragrance overall sat and just matured a little bit because it seemed to be a little more complex, a little bit more multi-layered than just a simple, fresh, citrusy, synthetic fresh fragrance. Is it worth the hype? Because there's a lot of hype out there, especially now that 9PM Rebel has been released. There's a lot of hype about this and also 9PM. So this is one of the trio of fragrances by Afnan in the 9 o'clock line, we'll say. I'm not going to talk about the other two, I'm just going to talk about this one in this video, but there's a lot of buzz about this, a lot of hype about this. Is the hype true? Well, to some degree it is. I'm going to tell you again my what for regarding this. It is very fresh and fruity in the open, but automatically you also get that incense. Very much like when you first spray on Bleu de Chanel. You get this fresh, fruity blue fragrance, but then you also get the promise of something a bit darker. It starts coming into the foreground more as it dries down. You get a more of an earthy, loamy, mature tone that is very much dark incense, along with some other notes that are combined with it. After all, it is an inspired by, so it does have that simplicity of the grab-and-go shower gel fresh kind of fragrance. But in that dry down, which it dries down relatively quickly, that is one thing about this fragrance, is that it doesn't take you forever to get to the final stand, what the fragrance is ultimately going to be in the base. That happens typically after about 20-30 minutes or more. While you do get that fresh citrus, you also get a bit more of that darker, more meaty, more pulpy. And when I say pulp, I mean like the pulp of a fruit Like blackcurrant is a more serious, kind of a darker, instead of a fresh, bright, happy, playful kind of fruit. It's a little bit more in line with an intelligent. It's got something a bit more to say than I'm just here to play. Of course, the mint, lemon, and pink pepper trio add freshness to the fragrance. That's where the fresh comes from. In this particular iteration, after it's sat for a while, I don't get the synthetic as much as I did when I first tried it on. And I think that's one of the benefits of letting it sit and rest and macerate and mature for a little bit, is because it's going to be a little bit better in your second, third, or fourth try on. The combination of apple, cedar, and frankincense come across in a very woodsy. There are times when at the very dry down of this, after I've had it on for maybe an hour or two, I get a little bit of petrichor, almost like an asphalt, darker, earthy, and it's a little bit of that incense mixing, I think, with the woody, the sandalwood and cedarwood notes, of course, with the loaminess of a patchouli, well done patchouli as well, that lend itself towards having that after rain kind of asphalt, rich, black incense kind of smell. I know I'm being and I really like it. I get that from Bleu de Chanel as well. It's part of an aquatic sense because petrichor involves rain, so it's got that aquatic, it's coming from the whole aquatic sense of the fragrance, and it's super enjoyable. It's a little bit more pensive and thoughtful. I like the fact that this fragrance has that same facet that Bleu de Chanel and Versace Dylan Blue and Y have. So I think to a large degree the hype is real, maybe a little bit less so as we've had a lot more blue fragrances come out since 2022 when this first launched. There's a lot more options available to you. Having said that, you could do worse than 9am Drive. I'm glad that I have it. I definitely have worn it. I'll probably wear it again in the future. So I definitely think it's worth owning at the price point. Now, as you begin to see fewer and fewer of them at discounters, the price is going to probably increase. So if you're going to buy it, now is the time to buy it while the buzz is going for the new Rebel. And so now is a good time to grab this up. And if you have a local TJ Maxx or another rack store that carries it, you'll probably get a decent price instead of having to order it from a discounter and pay shipping. Well guys, that's my 2 cents on a fragrance that I should have covered years ago. I apologize that I'm just now getting around to it. The 9PM Rebel forced me to go to my shelf and go to my kind of archives of fragrances, and I pulled this one out and was like, oh yeah, I guess I should have covered this one. And so I'm really glad that I have it though, because I do like it. I do like the presentation. Some people have complained that the bottle isn't very stable. It will make a loud bang if it falls over because it's super heavy, so just be careful of that. Presentation is great, smells great, you know, really inexpensive. What more can you ask for? But what about your opinion? You can even tell me your opinion about the others in the trio. I'll have first impressions coming up with the other 2 that I have yet to cover in this line, so be on the lookout for that. Otherwise though, please leave your comments down below. Always appreciate seeing your thoughts. Thanks so much for tuning in today, and as always, thank you so much for your continued support on my channel. I'm Tommy with Studio Sense, and I'll see you tomorrow with another video review. That came out too quick. I don't know if I could even understand that without subtitles. I'll see you tomorrow with another video review.